California, of course, the other big state where a lot of this is going down. Of course, California has this weird election process unfolding tonight where it goes to the top two finishers in a primary, whether they're from the same party or not, which could be the case, for example, in the gubernatorial ballot measure here, where we could have two Democrats on top and the president's choice to fill that with a Republican being odd man out. Let's get the read from Amanda Head, the Hollywood conservative host. We've also got Ben Kissel, the radio show host, and Alexandra Smith, America Rising PAC executive director. Alexandra, and would you begin with you? This process has infuriated both parties in California for different reasons. Its genesis was to get more moderate candidates acceptable to more voters, but it's turned out not to pan out that way. What happened?
You're totally right. And, you know, this has really turned into a dumpster fire for the Democrats because instead of producing more moderate candidates, we're seeing that in these primaries, the Democrats are really cannibalizing each other and are doing so on issues like single payer and impeachment. And so these are exactly the kind of issues that the DCCC and the Democratic leadership here in Washington does not want to talk about and does not want their candidates discussing ahead of this all-important midterm election. And so, you know, after $8 million spent in these three districts in Orange County, the Democrats are facing nearly a total lockout.
Well, but so is the Republican gubernatorial candidate, right? John Cox, the one the president was tweeting his support for. And Amanda, I'm looking at that and the likelihood that Gavin Newsom, the lieutenant governor, and Antonio Villaraigosa, the former L.A. mayor, could be the top two finishers there, and they would be the ones competing against either you have a Democrat or you have a Democrat.
Yeah, this is the unfortunate aspect of the double-edged sword of a jungle primary. We've got some districts that are currently held by Republicans that will benefit Republicans with this jungle primary because they have a slew of Democrats. But in the gubernatorial race, you've got a lot of people. A lot of my friends are split on whether they want to go for Travis Allen or John Cox, and people are not galvanized around one candidate. So as a result, we might be pushed to third, which will lock us out of that for the general election. Last I saw, which I think was, about an hour and a half ago, let's see, Gavin Newsom was at 34%. Travis Allen and John Cox were locked up in a dead heat, I think between 16 and 18%. And Villaraigosa was at 9%. So those numbers are going to be shifting throughout the day. But I'm hopeful. I think that we can have a traditional runoff in November, and we can get one of those Republicans in there in the second slot.
You know, Ben Kissel, one of the assumptions was that this system, this whole midterm election was going to be about this blue angry wave as a response to Donald Trump. It might still occur, but it's not as likely. And I'm wondering, between the improving economy, the good jobs numbers, and maybe Nancy Pelosi's missteps, that Democrats are grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory here. What's happening?
We have one situation happening, regarding some of the more contested places that the Democrats want to flip. 8 out of 10 of those places do end up leaning Republican, but 7 out of those 10 voted for Hillary Clinton, which lets you know that electorate is relatively pragmatic and willing to cross party lines. When it comes to the Democratic message, I understand there are some more progressive Democrats, some more moderate Democrats, but at the end of the day, we have a situation where Donald Trump, if those tariffs go through, the farming industry is a $45 billion industry in California that would devastate them. We have the situation of legalized marijuana that's going to add around $4 billion to their economy. Jeff Sessions wants to take that away. I think there's a lot of strong talking points for the Democrats. And despite the fact they are sort of perhaps too aggressive and too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to candidates, I think that there is still a reason to be positive.
All right. Alexander, you could flip it around as well and say we don't have as many angry people. You have more satisfied people. That doesn't necessarily mean Republicans are going to take their knocks in the House and lose some seats, but they might not lose the 23 that would flip the House. What do you think of that?
Well, I think certainly if you look at the closing gap on the generic ballot, I think that's absolutely owed to the positive economic news that we're seeing because it's independents that are driving those numbers. So in terms of that generic ballot, looking at the people who are sort of evaluating the situation nationally and how they feel at home, they're feeling more positive about things. So there's less of a pitchfork mentality, if you will. But, I think that honestly the Democrats who are galvanized by issues like single payer, they're kind of scaring Republicans a little bit into turning out in some of these places, because if Republicans are thinking, if that's what's on the horizon, then I better get out there and vote.
Real quickly, Amanda, this idea of the math, I mean, in California, New Jersey alone, there are 12 vulnerable Republican House members. I mean, really vulnerable House members who could flip and go Democrat. That's half what Republicans or Democrats would need to take control in those two states alone. Is that a worry still?
I don't think so. Democrats, like we've said, they need 23 seats. They are hoping and quite frankly needing to extract 10 from California. To what Ben was saying about the Orange County candidates, you've got Darrell Issa retiring, Ed Royce, and Dana Rohrabacher. Right. All three of those seats are going to be vulnerable, but we'll see what happens in the end. We've got 14 seats, and those three are going to be swing seats. But GOP turnout is going to be key, especially with the gubernatorial race. If we don't have one Republican in those top two slots, that actually depresses Republican vote in November by 33%. So we've really got to get somebody in there on that second spot.
That was all Arnold Schwarzenegger's fault. He came up with that. All right, guys, thank you both. All three, I apologize very much.